Hey guys, it's Coach Pete with AcademicRecruits.com coming to you today from the locker room at Yates High School, back-to-back state champs in Third Ward, Texas. This is Coach Greg Wise. He's the head coach here at Yates for the last 4 years. 4 years. And he's been around Houston in the recruiting game for a long time. We've known each other since way back in the day when he was at Lee High School. He had a kid, Corey Henderson went to A&M, and then Damian Humphreys went to Baylor. And he's had a lot of other kids like Darren O'Connor went to a smaller school. And then at Hightower had a bunch of D1 kids, some D2, some JUCO. And then here he's had kids from all levels. So he really has a good bird's eye view of what the recruiting process is like for a lot of different circumstances. So Coach, I guess the first question is, you've been there so many times, how do you sit down with parents and kids and get them to be realistic? Is that a difficult thing for you to do so they're not chasing something that's never going to happen anyway?
Well, no, Pete, I guess it is with anything. You got some parents that are realistic, and know a lot more about the process, so it's easy to kind of explain to them what you think is best for them, the kid, and the family. And then you have some that are not realistic, and you kind of got to try and go more in detail and try and really sit them down and explain to them the situation. So I know a lot of coaches probably don't even try and go that far and get involved with it because they don't want to say hurt the parents' feelings or the kids' feelings. I feel like I'm close enough with my kids to be able to talk to them and explain to them what I really think about the situation.
I think that's huge, and it's so much easier when you're winning 30 games a year. There's not a single parent who's going to go to the Yates principal and say, oh, Coach Wise is cheating my son out of this, that, or the other. If you're winning 14 games a year, high school coaches need to be more concerned about that one, rogue parent going to a principal and trying to chase down their job. Coach, have you seen some kids over the years make a bad decision where you thought, really, you're a D2 player or a D3 player, but they reached D1, got there, and then once they're there, they're unhappy because, again, they were unrealistic in the first place?
Oh, yeah. And again, Peter's kind of depend. Everybody has their own situation. Like there may be an example with my youngest son, and he wants to be a college coach. So to do that, he wants to go to the biggest program as he could, and then learn everything he could, and then be in the right situation when it's time. So, but if it's someone that's looking to go and play, and that's their main concern, and think about, most kids think about the NBA, and almost all kids in high school, they go to college, think they possibly make an NBA team. So if they don't do that, their mindset is to want to be going and play. So those are some of the kids that if you really want to go and play, and then there's some programs that I know going into it that they're probably not going to play. Coaches, is looking at them as maybe a practice player, second string player. College coaches, they look at people and project them as a starter. Then they look at some and project them as a second string player, third string player, practice player. So, or a player that may even just looking at them being there for a year because they just have to have somebody at that particular time. So it's a gamut of things that parents really need to understand.
Now, when you're advising kids, both because you're coaching summer ball right now too, are you going to stick with that long term? Probably. I didn't think so. It's kind of a special deal because one of his best friends for a long time has a son playing, so kind of a different deal. But you're going to have kids who are going to get recruited. What are some things that you sit down with them? Do you help them through the process of, okay, here are some things you need to look at when you're choosing the school, rather than looking at for example, the size of the arena is just an impossibly galactically stupid criteria for you to base your decision on where to go to college. And yet there are kids out there who've made that exact very same decision. What are some things you tell your kids, here's what you ought to be looking at as you start to if you start to whittle down your list of schools to ultimately make a decision about where you're going to college?
Well, one of the first things I've had, I even had kids this year that told me they were going somewhere and hadn't even got the coach. Talked to the assistant coach, and to a school and you haven't really sit down with the head coach and talk to him, find out what his plans are for you, I think that's the first thing. Make sure that you're comfortable with the academics, make sure you're comfortable with all of the coaches. The assistant is probably the one that's doing most of the recruiting, but you need to make sure that you talk with the head coach and look at him straight in the eye, you look him straight in the eye and tell you what his plans are for you. Look at the system, because if you're a smaller player and you utilize your quickness and speed, then you don't want to go to a school that's going to play slow, because that gives other kids that play more into that system an opportunity to play. So we want to look at the system, the coach, the coaches, players that are already there, which is huge. If you're a freshman going in and you want to start at point, and they got a point that started as a freshman this year, and unless he's not good, he's just there because they didn't have anyone, or you think you're that much better, then you need to look at that. So the players that you're coming in behind, your system, all of the coaches, and then you look at the environment you're going to be happy in that, because you're not going to be happy in the city that you're playing in, and that's going to reflect on their playing. So I think all those are the most important things to be done.
So to review, have a good relationship with the head coach. Why does that matter? Because the assistant coach is a revolving door. He could recruit you, and then people recognize, well, he got that kid from Yates, he must be a hell of a recruiter, and now he's gone. Now who's fighting for you? So don't go someplace where you don't feel very comfortable with the head coach, his character, the relationship you have. Also, his stability is important. You know how many kids went to TCU to play for Neil Doherty, and then he's gone, and now they're unhappy. And that happens all the time. The academics of the school, try to go someplace that fits what you want to study or what you want to do with your life if playing basketball professionally doesn't work out. You hit on the location of the school. If you hate the snow, don't go to Chicago because you might not be happy. And I think those things are all key points. And you talked again about the criticalness of having that good relationship with the head coach.
I would even throw in meeting the athletic director and not just him coming in and speaking and saying, we'd love to have you talk with him, and even asking him, where does he see the program going? What does he think about the head coach? And most athletic directors, they're gonna say something to where you can kind of tell, if it's a coach that he will look at, well, he don't win this year, he may have a problem. And they may not say that, but the way they talk, you kind of get
You can read between the lines.
I
I never thought about that, but that's you kids out there going on visits this fall, and those meetings with the athletic director or even the school president, that is something that you should want to know. Are you happy with the basketball program right now? What commitment are you going to make to improve it in the future? And where does the head coach stand? Now, Coach, you mentioned something else I think is lost. Like, for example, former point guard at Yates, a kid named Pee Wee, who was spectacular as a student and as a player. Well, Stephen F. Austin was trying to recruit a point guard, and they were struggling a little bit because kids feel like, well, Pee Wee's got 3 years left, and he played 30 minutes a night, so there might not be room for me. But something else I think is important, besides looking at the kids they already have, is look at who's coming in. When you go on your visits in the fall, you're only going to know about the sophomores, juniors, and seniors. You're not going to know anything at all about the current freshmen. And it's very easy for a coach to tell you, no, these 3 freshmen are all wings, so we don't have a point guard in this class. Well, they might have recruited one of those 3 kids as a point guard. So you need to make sure you do your homework on that front as well. Coach, last thing before I let you get going, what are some mistakes or pitfalls that you've seen kids and parents make over the years that could have been avoided if they had good advice? And what are some things kids and parents can do to help themselves? You've had kids here who were highly recruited with 50 offers. You've had kids here no one really wanted. And you've had to go hustle and grind and kind of make opportunities for them. What can kids in that situation that aren't the elite high-level kids, what mistakes can they avoid, and what can they do to help themselves with the recruiting process?
One thing I'd like to piggyback on what we went real quick is you can do, you need to understand, you can do all your homework, but you need to still make sure there's, even with myself and my son, the coach can say he's not going to recruit somebody, and that's one other thing. The coach can tell you that he's not going to recruit somebody else in your position. Or if you try and commit, which is something we didn't talk about, committing early, and the coach said, well, if you commit, you're not going to recruit anybody at your position the following year. And I've had that happen with people that I know, and you ask the coach, and he can answer that in a way where basically he's saying, you're not lying. Well, like you were just saying, well, he can play the two also, or they can play together. But he's a point guard, so in his way of thinking, he can play the 1 and 2, so I'm not really recruiting the point. So I would almost venture to say, if you go there thinking, not worrying about what's going to come behind you, if they tell you that that's not coming, I wouldn't even really pay attention to that. Because when push comes to shove, a great player they can get at that position, they can get it and take it. So I don't care who coach is, they can take it. So I wouldn't even look at it as what's coming behind. Just look at it if you think it's going to be good enough. Don't go there and it's a big program and you say, well, I can play because they don't have anybody there now. But somebody's going to come behind and you'll play if it's that kind of program. So, and then in regards to mistakes, I would think get involved yourself and make sure you have an understanding of the process yourself. Don't depend on one coach. Don't depend on one person, AAU coach, high school coach. Do the homework yourself, like what you're presenting now. If they can follow that and the things that we're talking about, do it yourself. Don't depend on somebody to do it and come back with you with information. You don't want an AAU coach that's trying to get something for himself and to get that information and be telling you something that may just help him. Same with the high school coach. I have no aspirations of going to college at all. And so all my players know that. They know that my only concern is for them. They're not the college coach that can do anything for me. But they also on that look for them. So you want to do the homework yourself in terms of everything that we just talked about. So I would say that's the main deal. Don't depend on somebody else. And you can do that yourself. If that's your son or your daughter, they should be the most important thing to you. And so that shouldn't be much of all spending time about that yourself.
I think that's huge. I mean, the first thing that the coach touched on is you can't worry about who's coming behind you. You shouldn't even ask the question. You're not going to recruit a center next year too, are you, coach? Because what are they supposed to say? Of course, you're opening the door. You're almost begging them to tell you a lie. And we touched on this in an interview with Coach McClellan earlier, which I think is important. Understand, if you're academically qualified in the early period, and then you sign high major in the spring, most of the time that doesn't work out. Most of the time you get recruited right over, and then you're on the bench and you're unhappy. So understand, when the scholarship offers that come in November of your senior year, even if it's a legit offer, the school didn't really want you in the first place. And the offers that come in the spring, a lot of the times, the schools didn't necessarily want you in the first place. So be careful with that. And I think what Coach said a minute ago is huge. And it's not just for hoops. It's not just for recruiting. It's for your life. Take ownership. Don't wait around for somebody else to do for you what you could and should be doing for yourself. Coach Wise makes phone calls to help his kids. He sent some kids my way with academic recruits for me to try to help them as well. And that's great. But at the end of the day, it ought to be up to Coach Wise's kids to do it themselves. Because who's going to care more about your future than you? And if you don't care about your future, why should anybody else? So I think the idea that you've got to take ownership, you got to do a lot of the legwork and the homework and the research yourself, I think is huge. So that's about all I got. Coach, you got anything to add before we sign off?
Yes, the last thing I'd like to say, and I guess this is kind of like at the again, once you, let's say you decide where you're going and you send them off to school, all the pre-stuff you did is very important. But what people don't really understand, I think I would just say the first month that they get to school, especially the first week or two, that's almost more important than any other time besides where you're going out at, because that's the time they're off alone and they're not used to doing things on their own, and they let things go by, whether it's going to class, going to homework, or what have you, and then the next thing you know, they ain't able to play, and then like you said, somebody passed them because they can't play. So once you send them off, I think that first week or two, you should be checking with them
every day.
And get with whoever their academic person is and stress to them that you want your son or daughter to do what they're supposed to be doing. Because the bigger school is, even in Arizona with my son, AB student, and started off slow, and luckily, because I was checking, got to it, and it wasn't a problem, but it could have been a big problem. So,
parents, did you hear that? Talk to the academic advisors at the school. Let them know that you're here to help them motivate their son if need be. And if the academic advisor knows there's a parent who cares and the kid falls behind academically, well, now in the academic advisor's mind, he knows there might be accountability for himself, because the parent told him, "You look after my son and let me know how I can help." Well, and the academic advisor didn't do much. Now the academic advisor potentially has problems. So if he or she knows there's an involved parent at home, that's going to give the academic advisor just that little extra shove to make sure that they're staying on top of the son. And the other thing is, it's along the same lines, the old Head and Shoulders commercial, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So you show up for summer school your freshman year, and within the first 2 weeks, you can't finish the mile run, you can't even do 15 push-ups, you skip 2 or 3 classes, you're liable to wind up with your butt getting sent home before the school year even starts. But even if you don't get sent home, the coaches are, because it's harder to send kids home right away with APR stuff. You know, schools lose scholarships now if kids get dismissed in poor standing academically. But you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So if you're out of shape, skipping classes, acting like a jerk, smoking weed, etc., well, that makes an impression on the college coach. And once a college coach decides, you know, it was a mistake to recruit this kid. He doesn't listen. He's got a bad attitude. He's skipping class. He's out of shape. He doesn't work on his own. He's not self-motivated. Once a college coach decides recruiting that kid was a mistake, they might never undecide. You can change your ways, and to a lot of college coaches, they're not going to be able to see that you've changed. They're going to remember how you were when you first got there. So I think that's great advice, Coach. I really appreciate that. Any final thoughts before I let you go?
No, that's it. And even, again, I'm more on the academic side. Even with that, make sure that they're taking classes that's going to get them toward their degree, and not taking classes just to stay on the time. So,
by the way, sorry to cut you off, but that's especially true for JUCO. If you have to go JUCO and you need 60 hours in an associate's degree to get to D1, don't let the advisor or the coach in JUCO put you in 12 hours of basket weaving so you can stay eligible, but you have nothing going toward your 2-year degree. Now you got to take 24 hours in summer school just to go D1. Well, if you're the kind of student who wound up in JUCO, how do you think you're going to get 24 hours in one summer? The reality is, you know, you're probably not going to. So I think that's huge as well. Well, Coach Wise from Yates, this is Coach Pete with academicrecruits.com. You can email me if you have any questions, coachpete@academicrecruits.com. And Coach, I really appreciate your time. And we'll definitely stay in touch. All right, Coach.